Hey, welcome to Craft Conversations, where I craft a conversation and I talk a little bit sometimes about craft beer. I am your host, Brian Dales. And on this episode, it's episode 50, guys. It's my 50th episode. How exciting is that? Episode 50. We're on the air. I got some new carpet squares up on the wall. Kind of did a little more decoration up in here, because I got a very special guest coming in next week, and I'll talk about that here soon. But I'm not going to make this a long episode. I say that all the time. It's probably going to be a long episode. But, it's the 50th episode. I wanted to kind of do something special. And I don't have anything really planned guest-wise special, or any tricks or games or clowns, balloons, none of that kind of stuff. I could have maybe got some balloons. That would have been fun, right? But, no. What we're going to do today is I just want to go through and thank everybody that has made this podcast possible so far. So I'm just going to go down the list of guests that we've had on the podcast and kind of tell you a little bit about them and where you can maybe find them and follow up with them. Most of them are going to make a reoccurrence here on the podcast shortly. Podcast. Well, I sounded kind of like I was from Boston or something when I said that. But so I just want to go through and just kind of thank everybody, and like I said, let you know what everybody's doing, where they're going to be. We're going to be recycling more guests as we've been doing. I had Paul Pietrofesso and Joshua Jarman on here recently, and got more previous guests scheduled to come back on and kind of do a follow-up of who's who, where's where are they now, whatever. But without further ado, I jotted down some notes. Yes, I do take some notes sometimes and read them. So I just want to kind of go through and thank everybody. So here we go. The episode 2, the first episode we did was what we called the pilot episode. Caleb and I kind of got together and explained who we were. I just got finished watching half of that episode, actually kind of reminiscing a little bit about where I've come from. And man, that first episode was so raw, man. I was even shaking while I was pouring the beer. I was so nervous on that first episode. And Caleb was sitting right here across from me. I was clean shaven. Pilot episode, man. Half of these stickers weren't even on the table. Most of this stuff was here, I think. A few different things. Some mics have changed. Some headphones have been updated. Some dialing in of the board and kind of tweaking things out. So many things have changed since that first episode, man, but it was so great to go back and watch it. So if you haven't done so in a while, if you've seen all the episodes, or at least some of them, go back and watch some of those earlier episodes. It's kind of fun to go back and see where we started and just how different it was. It was we were definitely new to this, and you could tell from that first episode. So it put a big smile on my face to go back and watch that thing and see how it all started. But so that was actually episode number 1. Episode number 2 was our first guest. That was Michael Carcutt. He's the head chef and owner of Gray's Somerville. You can still see him around town. We had him on first because Gray's had burned down back in February 14th, I think, somewhere around there. It was back in February of this year. And we had him on as our first guest. That was kind of a planned event. I'm clicking my pen, guys. I'm sorry. I'm going to put it down. He was our first guest. We planned that because he had a fundraiser coming up to try and raise money for the restaurant and for his employees and things like that. So first guest, we tried to get him on to try and help with that. And I hope we did a little bit. I know the weather kind of played a part in that, and some things kind of went awry. But regardless, we tried to help out with that. So he was our first guest. You can still see him around town. He's done a few pop-ups there at Homegrown Brew House, 117 South Main Street in downtown Somerville. You can still find him popping in over at Gray's Mount Pleasant and doing some chef work over there. And the plan, as far as I know right now, is for those guys to reopen here in Somerville sometime around the first of the year, January, maybe February, probably at the latest, hopefully. So look forward to that. Stay tuned. I'll give you more info as I know it, and once we get closer to that, I hope to have Mike back on to discuss all the happenings and the grand opening and try and help push that for him. So Mike was episode 2. We move on to Dan Riley. He was episode 3. Dan, I didn't even know Dan. At the time, Caleb Quire was working at at Homegrown. He was working in the kitchen there, and he had heard Dan play some music up there and said, man, we got to get this guy on the podcast. He's a great musician, great dude, has run, ultra marathons and races, and you guys have a lot in common. So Caleb booked Dan Riley for the show, and we got him in here. We had a great conversation about all those things, and he played some fantastic music for us. Right now you can find him. He hosts an open mic of sorts, I guess, not of sorts. I think it's like an open mic at the Knightsville General Store out in Knightsville. That was on Sundays. I don't even need to mention that because it's not anymore, but I just did. I think he does it now on the second Saturday of every month, starting at 5:30. I've heard rumors that it may go back to Sundays once the weather cools down a little bit. I'm not sure. But you can follow Dan Riley Music on Facebook and look for updates on that. He keeps his events pretty well updated. So Knightsville General Store, the open mic there, second Saturdays in a month. He also does the third Fridays at Homegrown for us from 7 to 9. And like I said, just check him out on Facebook. He keeps his page pretty much updated. He also posts a lot of cool snippets of music that he's working on and things that he's doing, fun stuff that he's doing. So check out Dan Riley on Facebook and get out and see him around town. So I want to thank him. And then we picked up Joshua Jarman. I know Caleb has known Joshua for a long time, worked at Coastal Coffee Roasters with Caleb when he was there. And then I joined the Coastal team and kind of took over for Joshua for a little while. And then Joshua came back. So I've known Joshua for a long time as well, well over a year. Great musician, great overall dude. He came back to Coastal for a little while, Coastal, but he's not there anymore, I don't think. He's actually living out of a van right now. He got a conversion van, and if you keep up with the podcast, I did a show with him from his van here recently, but he was on episode 4. Great guy. He plays some music for us as well. You can see him every other Thursday at the open mic there at Coastal Coffee Roasters, and that's from 6 to 9. And check out Wings Back. That's Wings space back. You can check him out on Facebook. That's his page he has on Facebook, and you can keep up with what Joshua's doing. He's doing a lot of good stuff around town. He's doing a fundraiser right now with a shirt. He's trying to raise money for lupus because his mother was afflicted by that, or is, and doing some fundraising, doing some great benefits around town. Musical events. He's got some stuff coming up in December. A couple events. I don't know. I can't keep track of all this stuff, man. But I'll try and link everybody's page in the show notes and the description when I post this. And it's going to be an unusual posting. I'm going to post it on a Thursday instead of a Friday. So I just want to get it out there. I'm just excited about it. So if you're hearing this, it's on a Thursday. But check him out. Like I said, he's on Facebook. Wings Back, and that's where you can find out where Joshua is going to be. Episode 5, we had Richard Mallett of the Mallets out there, the owners of Coastal Coffee Roasters. He is the coffee roaster at Coastal Coffee. He was on episode 5. We had a great conversation about just crazy stuff, a lot about photography, a lot about coffee roasting, camping, just a lot of stuff with Richard there. You can find him most days of the week at Coastal Coffee out there standing at the roaster and just making the perfect bean for the town of Somerville. They're the only roaster in Somerville, and he runs that boy as far as the roaster side goes. And you can find him Facebook. He's on Instagram. He does photography as a side business, and I think it's Richard Mallett Photography. I'll post a link so you can just click on it and go right to him. But look up Richard Mallett on Instagram and on Facebook and check out some of his events and go book him for your next event, whether it be a wedding or whether it just be a personal photo shoot you want to do just to get some headshots, or if you want to just get some scenic stuff out on the beach or out in nature somewhere. He's the perfect guy to do it. He knows the perfect timing, the perfect lighting, the perfect weather, the perfect days. Hook up with Richard Mallett. He was on episode 5. We had Clayton Lewis on episode 6. We also ran into Clayton Lewis at Homegrown Brew House, I believe. I think that was another one that Caleb hooked me up with and had me book. You can find him at the Singer-Songwriter Series at Homegrown. He steps in from time to time to play that. That's on Thursday nights from 7 to 9, every Thursday night. And then you can also find him at the Honky Tonk Saloon quite often, working the open mic out there. I think those are on Tuesdays maybe, or maybe they've moved into Thursday. I can't recall, man. Just go to Clayton Lewis Music on Facebook, and you can find him. He came on the podcast, played some fantastic music. I mean, I remember saying during the episode 6, that if I had the means and if I had the proper studio, I would be recording that guy right then and there and signing him and not letting anybody else have that guy, because he's just fantastic up-and-comer, young dude, very good persona, great storyteller, writes his own music, as well as all these other guys that I've mentioned already. They write their own original music. Find him around town. Check him out on Facebook, find out where he's going to be playing next, and go see him. I promise you won't be sorry. Up next, we had Paul Pietrofesso of the Paul Stone Project. He was on episode 7. And great guy. He came in and talked a lot about music, actually. And a lot about, we called it the artsy episode, I think is what it was called. Talked a lot about music and how it's integrated, and about tone, and about chords, and just a lot of education on how everything's put together in studio work and those type things. You can find him sometimes at the Singer-Songwriter Series. He sits in with Fleming sometimes. He plays by himself on that night, which is, like I said, Thursday at Homegrown. He also plays the fourth Friday of the month at Homegrown. And he's at various other places around town. He'll show up sometimes at Coastal Coffee Roasters, play their open mic. He shows up at Cupamana, or Cupamana, however you say it, there in the Hutchison Square there in downtown Somerville. He'll play there sometimes. He did something out at Coosall Creek here recently. He does a lot of charity events and outdoor things. He played our event, as well as Joshua Jarman did, out at Blackwater on the Ashley at a Rivercraft event that we did back in July. So he's all over the place. You can look him up, the Paul Stone Project on Facebook, and you'll see past events, and you'll see any upcoming future events that he's got going on as well. So check out Paul Pietrofesso on Facebook. Next up, we had Gordon Peters. Gordon Peters works for Taco Marine. Great all-around guy. He came on as one of our interesting and fun guests, and we had a great time talking to him. The dude is just a flora fauna expert. That's what we tout him as. He's one of the only guys I go out on the river with. We go out kayaking all the time on the Edisto. We're trying to do the entire Edisto River, the north and south forks of it, all the way down through the confluence, and eventually all the way out to the ocean is the plan. We had a great conversation with him. You can find him pretty much 2 or 3 nights a week at late nights at Homegrown Brew House. He'll close the place down and make you stay an extra hour. Always a great time. Very personable guy. Talks to anybody and everybody that wants to talk to him. He can talk about any subject. Very knowledgeable dude, and very entertaining. And if you don't find him at Homegrown, you're going to find him out on the river somewhere, or he's going to be traveling. He's down in Miami quite often. He does a lot of stuff around up and down the East Coast at a bunch of waterways, kind of touting his Taco Marine products. So Gordon Peters, he was on episode 8. He's going to be on again soon for his second episode for his encore. So stay tuned for that. It's coming. I know. He's the elusive Gordon Peters. Everybody is, where's Gordon? Well, we don't know where he is most of the time, but a lot of times he's at Homegrown. Sometimes he's here at the house. We're going to get him back in the studio soon. Next up, we had on episode 9, we had Jana Riley. Yes, you heard that right, Riley. So guess who that is? That's Dan Riley's wife. Yes, they are married. They're a couple. She came on. Fantastic guest. She was our first female guest on the podcast, and she is an outstanding person, very, very giving person, very warm heart, funny, smart, sexy, just all those things. Jana's a great person. She is a fantastic writer for 3 different magazines, so look for her articles in the Azalea magazine, Palmetto magazine, and the New Augustan. I don't know what happened to the old Augustan, but she writes for the New Augustan. So check out her articles. You won't be sorry. Fantastic writer. And I think she does some freelance stuff too. At least that's what she said during our episode, that she was trying to get into more like travel writing, things like that. And I know her and Dan have acquired an RV of sorts, and I believe that's going to come to fruition here very shortly. They're going to get in that thing and start traveling around to various places, and I'm looking forward to see what she writes about. So check her out in those 3 magazines, Jana Riley. Next up we had Ron Daniel. He is another local musician, prior Air Force guy. We had a lot to talk about that on the podcast. It was episode 10. Fantastic guy. He just has tons of stories. Another great storyteller. Lots of Air Force stories that he has. You can find him first Fridays at Homegrown Brew House. He also does the circuit of all the open mics around town. So you might find him at Wine and Tapas during their Monday open mics that Fleming Moore is running, and we'll talk about Fleming here shortly. He might show up at Coastal Coffee on Thursday nights. I don't know if he's done Cupamana before. He comes in occasionally on off nights and does some stuff at Homegrown as well. So you can find him many places around town. As far as his podcast, episode 10, he did not, or as late as his podcast, episode 10, he did not have a social media presence, so he's not on Instagram and Facebook. So you can't really find him around town unless you just know where he is, unless you just see him pop up somewhere. He's played at All in Dog Green, way out at the Barn Jam. Fantastic musician, fantastic songwriter, has tons of just original material, and you don't want to miss him if he's out and about. And you might find him down at on every other week down at the VA shooting x-rays, taking care of our service members down there, ex-service members, our veterans. So Ron Daniel, great guy. Excuse me. Next, we'll thank Caleb Taylor. He's my boss and partner, I guess, over there at Homegrown Brew House, 117 South Main Street. He was on episode 11. He came on, Caleb's got an extensive knowledge of beer and the beer making process, and just came in and talked a lot about that. We had a fantastic Timmerman's Old Goose, Oud Goose, I guess you call it, 2014, I think is what he brought on the episode for us. One of his prized beers that he normally only drinks on New Year's Eve, so he was gracious enough to bring us that beer and drink it with us that night with Caleb and I. So we had Caleb, and me on that episode 11. You'll find him most nights, or the nights that I'm not working, you'll find him at Homegrown Brew House, mainly Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. He's there on Fridays as well, getting the new beer ready. And, so you'll find him there most time. Other than that, you might find him at Coastal Coffee Roasters. He hangs down there quite often as well. Or you'll see him driving around town in his, I don't even know what year the truck is. I think it's in the 60s or something. He calls it Herman, I think, because it's all kind of pieced together, and it's like a monster. So you'll hear that thing screaming around town. If you see him, wave at him. Let him know you see him. Next up, on episode 12, we had Ben Banky and Brian Cox come in from Oak Road Brewing Company. I used to work down there for a little while, right next to Coastal Coffee Roasters. And they came on and talked about some of the events that they had coming up at the time. They've got, right now, they've got the 12 Beers of Christmas coming up. That'll be the next thing coming up for those guys. They're always doing some kind of event over there. They came on and talked a lot about the brewery, about the brewing process, how they got started, how they opened the place. They're still the first and only brewery in Somerville at the moment. There's another one coming, but right now they're still the first and only one. So that's a feat in and of itself to last. They just hit their 3-year mark. So, and that's what it was. They came on to tout their 3rd year anniversary, and Caleb and I actually went out and did a remote from there during the anniversary. So, great people, great guys. They ran a fantastic ship over there. They're always doing some trivia. They do bingo every Sunday. They've always got food vendors out there serving up some delicious treats. They take advantage of the music over at Coastal Coffee Roasters. So get over there and check out those guys. You can go to their Facebook page as well and check out any event that they got going on. They post it up there. They've got a list of events for the next month easily out there. So check them out on Facebook, Oak Road Brewing Company, Ben and Brian. Then on episode 13, we invited Tyler Jones in. Tyler Jones was, how did we know Tyler Jones? I think he was another one that Caleb had found. We had both worked at Lowe's Foods at the Beer Den for a little while. Caleb and I, we both left. Well, he left Coastal Coffee, and I kind of did this as an extra job on top of Coastal Coffee. So we both went over and opened up the Beer Den there at Lowe's in Oak Brook. And I had already left Lowe's at this point and gone to Oak Road Brewing Company, but this was one of the vendors that would come in, or the reps, that would come in to Lowe's. So he kind of ran into this guy, thought he was very interesting, and said, man, we got to have this guy on the podcast. He's a rep for one of the breweries up in North Carolina. I said, let's do it. So Tyler Jones came in. He's a rep for Highwire Brewing Company out of North Carolina. He came in and brought us some delicious beers from Highwire. There's a sign over here that you can't see, but you've seen it in some of the podcasts if you've watched them all. He brought us this Highwire Brewing Company sign right here, so I got that prominently displayed over behind the couch. And sometimes we'll get a shot from that angle. You'll see it. Tyler, man, that dude is a mile a minute. That guy came in, and he was nonstop. I mean, he barely took a breath, I don't think, the whole time he was here. And when he did take a breath, it was like, and then he'd go again for forever before he took another breath. So Tyler Jones was a fantastic guest. He was very energetic and had a lot of knowledge of the beer scene locally and up in North Carolina and even Georgia, and really throughout the entire United States. He knew a lot about everything. So he gave us a lot of good info on the brewing scene and what's to come here in the near future. So great guy. I'd like to have Tyler on again. He was on episode 13. You can find him probably at Highwire Brewing Company or at various locations around town here in North and South Carolina, just kind of representing the brewery. And shake his hand, tell him you heard him on the podcast and Craft Conversations. Next up, episode 14, we had Brad Mallett, the father of Richard Mallett. So guess what he does? He is the owner of Coastal Coffee Roasters there in Somerville off of 3rd Street. I think it's 3rd Street. Is that correct? I believe it's 3rd Street. And I think there's a couple 3rd Streets in downtown, so it gets real confusing. But it's off of Main Street, right there with Oak Road Brewing Company. There's Subway there. There's an Arby's there. You can't miss it once you get down into that area. But yeah, he's the owner over there. Started that thing. Hell, I don't even know what the date is. I can see it on the wall. If I'm picturing the warehouse there, I can see it where it says established. But I cannot remember the damn date on it when it says established. I want to say 2010. Maybe they're 8 years in. I think it's 2010. Don't quote me on that. But you'll find Brad most days over there with a smile on his face at Coastal Coffee Roasters. He's there most of the morning and throughout the afternoon. If you don't find him there at Coastal Coffee, he's working some kind of market event, either Monk's Corner or over in Mount Pleasant, or maybe they're right there in downtown Somerville on Saturdays. He's always running about. He's always making a delivery somewhere of coffee. Just the man around town, the local guy. If you don't find him in any of those places actually working, he's out playing somewhere, usually in a kayak. He and I were actually out on the river at the same time this past Sunday. We didn't see each other. We were in different locations, but Gordon and I went out, and my girlfriend Quire, and then Brad went out with a bunch of his friends. So we were out there enjoying the same river at the same time on the same day. Imagine that. And we didn't see each other. It's a long river. It's the longest blackwater river in North America, as a matter of fact. The Edisto. So that was episode 14. Again, you can find him at Coastal Coffee Roasters. Check out Coastal Coffee Roasters on Instagram and on Facebook. You'll see whatever events they're doing and what the special coffee is of the day. And there's always just a smile on everybody's face over there. Get into Coastal Coffee Roasters, get you something to eat, and get you some good coffee, the best coffee in town, as a matter of fact. All right, that was episode 14. We're rolling right through this list. 24 minutes in. I know you guys like when I tell you how far along we are. Next, on episode 15, we invited Joey Sicanelfi. God, I don't even know if that's how you say his name. Sicanelfi? It's Joey Sicanelfi. Sicanelfi? One of those two. He is one of the original owners of Frothy Beard Brewing Company. They used to be off of Ashley Phosphate Road there in North Charleston. They have since relocated over to West Ashley in a fantastic brand new location, huge. Just dwarfs whatever the last location was, and their production has just tripled, quadrupled. I'm not even sure how far it's grown. I think they went from a 3-barrel maybe to a 10-barrel. No, they're more. They're way more than a 10-barrel. I'm thinking of Oak Road went to a 10-barrel. I don't even know what their brewing system is over there. I'd have to go back and listen to the podcast. But they're huge over there now. They're doing giant things. And Zombie Bob's Pizza has moved in with them. Used to be a food truck. Now they're a permanent location there at Frothy Beard. They're just doing fantastic things. There's always a good time going on over there as far as events, music, trivia. I think they used to do some comedy. They may still do that. Producing just tons of beer, distributing it all around town. You can find it at most grocery stores. You're going to find it on tap handles around town as well. So Joe is a great guy. He came in and talked all about the brewing process, about his humble beginnings and how they got involved with Wesley Donahue and Push Digital, and kind of made that big push to become the next big thing in town and really expand their business. You'll find him cruising the back house of Frothy Beard there, crafting delicious brews, or just having fun back there. I see him just kind of cruising around on scooters and forklifts and just doing all kind of fun stuff back there in the back of the house, just being a goof. Actually played Mario Kart here in the studio with Caleb when he was in here. Had a great time. So he was episode 15. You can check out Frothy Beard, of course, on Instagram and Facebook as well. Get over there and go have a pint and a delicious giant slice of pizza. I mean, the slice of pizza is probably, I don't know. I mean, you see this magazine I got sitting on the, which their pizza is not keto, by the way, but you see this magazine sitting on the table. That's not even as big as the slice of pizza is. I think the slice of pizza is bigger than that. So get over there and get you a slice and have a couple pints of beer. Joey was on episode 15. Next up, we had Blue Spear. We had Scotty Oliver and Tommy Altair come in from Blue Spear. It's a band around town. They were on episode 16. They came in and played some fantastic music for us. They kind of did things a little bit differently than what we were doing and kind of mixed it up. And it was the first duo we had on as a musical group. So that was something new for us, and that was fantastic. Tommy is actually my roommate. He's going to be on again shortly as a solo act, so I'm looking forward to sitting down and talking with Tommy and seeing what he's been up to lately. But they were on episode 16. You can find them at numerous places around town. They have a show coming up here this weekend, as a matter of fact, and I can't remember where it is. If you give me a second, I'll see if I can kind of take a look while I talk. But episode 16, they came on. They originally started, they've known each other since they were like 5 years old or whatever, and they originally started, they've gone through many different bands, but Scotty Oliver Band played here locally for quite a few years, and then they developed, and Tommy would sit in with them, and they decided to develop a new name, a new moniker when they got together. They would be something different. They would morph into a new thing, and they decided to call that Blue Sphere. So you can go to Blue Sphere, just type that in on Facebook, and you'll find out, you'll run right into them on Facebook. Just type it in. Past events, I'm not even seeing it on Facebook, so I need to tell him he needs to update the events on here. But they've got an event coming up this weekend, I think, because I told him I couldn't make it because I was working. I believe it's on Saturday. Where the heck are they playing? I don't know. I'll find out. We'll put it in the show notes. But they were on episode 16. You can find them on the third Thursday of the month at Homegrown Brew House. Sometimes it's just a Scotty Oliver Band. Sometimes Tommy will step in with them, and it'll become Blue Sphere. But get out and see those guys. They've played everywhere in town. They played the Windjammer. They played the Tin Roof. They played Coastal Coffee Roasters. They played at a Family Large Brewing Company, or Fam's Brewing. Hell, they've even played here in my house. So they're a fantastic band. If you haven't seen them, you must see them. They're upcoming. They're going to make big things happen in this next year. I know it. They've already made a big step this past year, 2018. But 2019 is going to be something special for Blue Spear, I think. So get out and see those guys. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Episode 17, we had my buddy, good buddy, and ex-roommate of Caleb's, we had Slayton Johnson, formerly of a band called the Ands out of Aiken, South Carolina. I'm waiting for the reunion of those guys because, man, they are a fantastic band. And if you never got a chance to see them, go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. I'm going to tell you this right now. You're gonna just stand by while I look this up. Go to YouTube. That's where I'm going now. So youtube.com. Come on, Internet. I want you to go to the search bar and I want you to type in the Ands Augusta. Augusta. And when you get there, the very first thing that comes up is going to be Pushing Bodies, the Ands, live from Stillwater Tap Room in Augusta, Georgia. And it was filmed and edited by Caleb Quire, so you can see some of Caleb's handiwork. But you're going to see this band and you're going to be like, oh my God, why are these guys still not together making music? Because they are just phenomenal. And you're going to want to book Caleb for your next event and have him come out and film it and edit it and put it together for you as well. So check out YouTube, go to the Ands, Augusta, type that in the search box, hit enter, and the first thing that comes up, Pushing Bodies. Check out that 7-minute video, and you're just going to be in awe of these guys. So fantastic. I'll post a link to that, as a matter of fact, in the show notes. So Slayton Johnson, you can now find him. Let me find my business card. Y'all have heard me talk about it. I do ads for him all the time. You can also find Slayton. He has now moved up to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and he is a zipline guide and a river rafting guide up there. If you email him at TNriverraft@gmail.com and tell him you want to go rafting, he'll set it up for you. He'll set up a trip, and you're going to have a fantastic time. Caleb and I went up and did a remote in Gatlinburg at Slayton's house. He was gracious enough to put us up and take us out rafting and ziplining for free. He won't give you that same deal, I promise you. You're going to have to pay for it. but we did a remote up there, and this guy is just a fantastic guide. So if you're looking for a fantastic trip in a fantastic location with fantastic views and a fantastic person, TNriverraft@gmail.com. Email Slayton Johnson. Let him know you're ready to go, and he'll hook you up with a trip. That was episode 17, and you can look him up on Instagram. He's still doing some music. He'll post some videos here and there, so check out Slayton Johnson. Next up, we had Chris Filan, episode 18. Man, we had a great conversation with him. As a matter of fact, right behind me on the wall over here, you see this guitar. I've actually tried to play it a couple of times. I'm trying to self-teach myself the guitar. I got a drum set over here. I'm trying to self-teach myself the drums. It's not going very well because I don't put any time into it, so they just kind of sit here. But I've been messing around with his guitar. He came in exclusively to be on the podcast and get this guitar. That was the deal. If I give him the guitar, if he came in and did a podcast with us, he left the guitar, so it's still sitting here. Chris, your guitar is still sitting here. I'm using it though. It's not sitting here in vain. But Chris came on, and man, Chris is all over town. He used to work at Oak Road Brewing Company for a while as well. He's a bartender around town. You'll see him at Coast Brewing Company on the weekends sometimes, working the canning line, serving beer. You'll see him out slinging drinks at the Tin Roof. He's over in Mount Pleasant at the House of Brews over there with Rob, serving beer over there from time to time. He's just all over the place. Probably super busy right now because he's opening up his own location, his own House of Brews location over in West Ashley. And I'll put a link to his page there on Facebook in the show notes as well, so you can kind of check out and keep track of the progress there. Hopefully that thing's, I keep checking. I haven't seen any dates or any post on when we think that thing is going to be open, but I'm waiting on it. So Chris, get on the ball, man. Whatever red tape you got going on over there, cut that shit out. And let's get that thing open, man, because I'm ready to check out your business over there and support it. So, Chris Filan, look him up, House of Brews, West Ashley on Facebook, and keep up with the progress over there. And we're going to get him back on very soon to talk about that as well and get an update on what's going on. So, Chris Filan, episode 18. Only got a few more, folks. Just kind of stick with me here, okay? Episode 15, we had Oh, I'm sorry. We're up to 18 right now. So episode 20. So we skip episode 19. Why do we skip episode 19? Because episode 19 was just Caleb and I. Caleb and me. It was just me. It was just Caleb and me. So we did a episode called the Dynamic Duo episode. We really didn't have a guest. My AC just cut on. Maybe you can hear it. Maybe you can't. I never know if you can hear this AC sometimes. But I shouldn't have pointed it out because now you're going to hear it. But, yeah, episode 19, it was just Caleb and me. We did the Dynamic Duo episode. We didn't have a guest scheduled, so I think we just said, hey, let's kind of just do our own episode, and we'll be our own guests. We'll interview each other. Well, we don't interview on this show, but we'll just talk to each other and craft a conversation between the two of us. And that's what we did. So episode 19 was the Dynamic Duo with Brian and Caleb Quire. Then we moved back into a guest with Fleming Moore. Episode 20. And man, I'm going to tell you right now, if it wasn't for Fleming Moore, I would not be here right now today. Not like alive, I wouldn't be dead, but I wouldn't be here doing this podcast right now if it wasn't for Fleming Moore. Fleming Moore gave us this Tone Master Bose board that I'm using right now. A lot of the cabling that we're using. What else did he give us? He gave us our original mics that we were using. Just a bunch of musical or audio and hardware that he gave us to use. And a matter of fact, I want to backtrack for 1 second to Richard Mallett, and I want to mention that the video that you're watching is recorded on a GoPro, a Hero 4 GoPro, that was loaned to us by Richard Mallett. So that was the original video that we were recording with that GoPro from Richard Mallett, and I'm still using it. But you know what? I bought it, so now it's my GoPro. I bought it from Richard and said, hey, we need it. So I bought it and took it from him. But just wanted to backtrack and mention Richard for that. But Fleming Moore gave us most of our equipment that we started off with. We since then have upgraded, to these mic arms that clip onto the table and new mics. I'm still using one of his mics, but he gave us a lot of stuff, and he came in and helped Caleb set up the studio and kind of got things going for us. So if it wasn't for him, we would have never gotten started. And much appreciative to Fleming Moore. And he came on and talked a lot about Bummerville Amphitheater. He runs Bummerville Amphitheater, a nonprofit here in town where he's trying to help energize and showcase local musicians. And that has really taken off, and I like to think that I've had something to do with that, and I like to think that he's had something to do with my success as well. We kind of work together in tandem with the local music scene and with podcasting and with just social media in general, just trying to get the word out on everything related to Somerville. So we're working together as a team. And check out Fleming Moore. He plays, right now he's doing every Monday at Wine and Tapas. He's doing an acoustic Monday up there where he has a bunch of his friends come out and they plays music. And he plays a lot of his original tunes and some cover tunes that he likes as well. He's doing a show this weekend, whatever the date is on this weekend. I believe it's, what is the date? Hold on 1 second, guys. November 10th. He's going to be out the same place that Dan Riley plays on the second Saturdays in a month. He's going to be playing at the Knightsville General Store and Coffee House out there in Knightsville. He's playing from 2 to 4 this Saturday, so get out and check Fleming Moore. Take a blanket out there, take a lawn chair, take a cooler with some treats. They also have some stuff there at the general store. Obviously, you can get some drinks, you can get some snacks, some muffins. They have an ice cream shop in there. You can get some ice cream. They got tents set up to kind of get you out of the weather. Go out there and check out Fleming Moore this Saturday. And we're going to have him on very shortly. He's going to come back on the podcast. We're actually going to go on location to his house, and we're going to do that show out there from Fleming's backyard. So stay tuned for that. He was episode 20. And you can catch him on Facebook as well, Fleming Moore Musician, and look up any events he has coming up. He also hosts the open mic at the Honky Tonk Saloon where Clayton plays. So it's just one big circle of people here, man. One big happy family. He was episode 20. And he also plays the Fifth Fridays at Homegrown Brew House, 117 South Main Street, downtown Somerville. Next up, episode 21, we had Anna Richards. Anna Richards, you can find her down at Daps downtown. It's a breakfast joint. Their specialty is pancakes down there, I believe, and they also do a breakfast wine bar or some kind of crap like that. I don't know. They're famous for their mimosas. I think she said they were on tap, if I remember correctly. So that's fantastic. She's down there most days. If you don't see her down there at Daps, you can find her pretty much at any local brewery or any place where they have craft beer around town. She's an ambassador for craft beer around town. She's always out and about. She runs an Instagram site. Her moniker on there is Beer Girl Meets World. So type in Beer Girl Meets World. You'll find Anna out there. She's always posting fantastic pictures of all the fantastic beer that she's drinking and the fantastic locations that she's drinking them at. So, like I said, she's an ambassador for craft beer around town. You don't want to miss her post. She's doing fantastic things for the community. And at one time, she was trying to start up a local chapter of the Pink Boot Society here in Charleston. I'm not sure where she is with that, but hopefully I'll get her back on the podcast again soon, and we can kind of get an update on where she is with some things and what she's doing nowadays. But definitely go to Instagram and follow her. Beer Girl Meets World on Instagram. That was episode 21. And then finally we come to the last episode we did with guests, with Caleb and me. Episode 22, we had Jackie Mallet on. If you remember, that was the episode I almost died. Luckily, she's a nurse, and she would have hopefully brought me back to life if I would have gone down. But that was a rough episode for the first 15 or 20 minutes or so. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. I mean, literally, I felt like I was about to go, and I survived, and I'm here. I'm doing episode 50 now. This was episode 22. We're on episode 50, guys. But Jackie Mallet, one of the original owners of Coastal Coffee Roasters as well. She now runs the infamous Corner House Cafe out in Summers Corner. Summers Corner is just growing by leaps and bounds, and so is the Corner House. They serve delicious coastal coffee out there, roasted by none other than Richard Mallet. So again, it all comes kind of full circle, and it's all kind of tied in together, one big happy family. You'll see her out at Corner House Cafe coming up with some delicious, creating wonderful eats out there, delicious things to munch on. So she's a fantastic chef and cook, and she comes up with some great creations out there. I need to get out. I haven't been out there in quite a while. I need to get out there and check things out and see where they've gone. So if you don't catch her out Summers Corner at the Corner House, you can catch her out in nature as well. She works another job as a nurse. She works in a hospice facility, trying to make the last days of people's lives the best that they can be, and helps them drift off into the afterlife. So she's a fantastic person in that aspect, and just every aspect, really. Let's be honest. If you don't catch her at any of those places, you'll catch her cruising around town in one of her vintage Thunderbirds, or her brand new Thunderbird that she has. So wave to her as you see her with her top down cruising around town, or go see her over at Corner House Cafe. That was episode 22. So that's it for all the guests that we've had on. I want to thank every last one of those people. They've all been fantastic. They've all been great in their own way. We've learned a lot from each and every one of them, or I have at least, and I hope you guys have too. I hope that having them on this podcast has broadened your horizon as far as what there is to do and see around town, and what some of these local entrepreneurs and workers are doing around town to help improve people's lives around the Low Country, and more specifically here in Somerville. Fantastic people, man, and I couldn't do this show without them, and I couldn't have done this show without them. Caleb and I couldn't have done this show without them. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on and supporting us, and we continue to support you guys as well. And I hope to have all of you back on again at one point or another to find out what you've been doing, what you've been up to, and to talk and have more great conversations. So I would also like to thank all the listeners and supporters of the podcast. There's plenty of them out there. A lot of you listen to every single episode. and I get lots of good feedback and comments and kudos and even criticisms, on the podcast for stuff that I maybe shouldn't have said or stuff that I did say that was incorrect. I know Caleb Taylor is one that was very good at one point at correcting stuff that we said on the podcast. And I appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and I hope you continue to listen. I hope that the new direction that I've gone and some of the solo stuff that I've been doing is just as interesting and entertaining as it has been with guests. I'm starting to integrate guests back into the show. Like I said, I think the last episode, it was scary when Caleb left, and it was I didn't know if I could do it on my own. It took me a while to find my new purpose for doing this podcast and to get myself back out there. So I hope that I'm doing a great job for you guys, and I hope that you guys continue to listen and support this podcast. And I hope you tell others to do the same and tell others what you're getting out of this podcast, if anything. And we're going to continue to have great guests on as well. Coming up next in line, like I said, is going to be Fleming Moore. He's coming up very shortly, but I just set up a two-part thing that I'm going to do with another local podcaster, the only other podcaster that I know of here in Somerville, Yaden Smith of the Somerville Advice Givers. He's doing great stuff over there. He does a totally different podcast than what I'm doing, but it's still in the same vein of positivity and motivation and trying to showcase local artists and, influential and interesting people from around town. Just trying to get the love back to our community here. We set up a two-part event that we're going to do. He's going to come on my podcast here in the Craft Conversation Studios next week. We're going to do a podcast together from here and sit down and just have a conversation. The following week, I'm going to go to Yaden's studio, and we're going to do his style of podcast where he sits down and talks to me and asks me a bunch of questions, kind of interview style. And we try and give advice to people around town, and hopefully we give some good advice and something that people can take and run with and use in their own lives. So two-part thing coming up. Look forward to that with Somerville Advice Givers. That's going to be exciting. So I'm learning as I go, guys, and I hope that you guys are learning something too from this podcast. I try and incorporate some science, some knowledge, some fitness, some education on fitness and nutrition and well-being, and then I try and have some guests in here to try and give you some knowledge and insight onto things that are going around town. So I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to bring you content each and every week, a couple times a week at most, and at least once a week at the least. So I look forward to still serving this community and doing great things with everybody here. And before I wrap this thing up, last but definitely not least, but I want to save him. Save him for last, and man, I'm getting choked up already. I don't know why, but I want to thank Caleb Quire, man. If it was not for Caleb Quire, I would not be here. I mean, I talked about Fleming Moore, and yeah, if it wasn't for Fleming, we wouldn't have the equipment to do this. But if it wasn't for Caleb Quire, this format would not be here. We would have never had this format. I would have had no need for this equipment that Fleming gave us. So Caleb Quire, he created the idea for this podcast. He created the name. He created the logo. He put together this table. He built this from, not the table, he didn't build the table from scratch. He had the table, but he sanded it down. He had the idea to put the stickers on it, the sawhorses. He put this whole studio together. Of course, I did some of the putting up of stuff on the walls, what have you, but he had the idea to put it up here in the loft. He designed everything. And throughout those 22 episodes that I just talked about, he exclusively, I would sit in from time to time and help with some edits and some ideas and give him some insight on what to put together for the show. And I would have some notes loosely. Sometimes the notes were not even legible, but I would help him at least put together the postings and things like that. But it was all Caleb Quire as far as putting this show together, whether it be the audio, the video, splicing those things together, the logos, the artwork, putting together the flyers for the event, the Rivercraft 2018 event that we did. Super talented dude. I mean, that's what he does. He does audio, he does video. He's a sound guy. He's an engineer. He's an artist. A very special guy. And I miss him. I miss him a lot. But he had to move on and do his own thing. So I just want to thank Caleb. Thank Caleb Quire. And I'm forever grateful and humbled. And I couldn't have done it without him. And man. And on this note, I should have started with Caleb Quire, but anyway, he knows how I feel about him. I hope he comes back soon. I want to do another podcast with him and kind of see what he's doing, what he's up to, and help promote anything and everything that he's doing because he deserves it. I just want him to be okay, and I want him to sit right here across from me again and just have a conversation, craft a conversation with Caleb. So, all right. There we go. You can find him at calebquire.com. CalebQuire.com. He's doing great things over there. He's still the creative guy that he's always been. He's doing a great blog over there on Mondays and Fridays. Mondays he does a nonfiction blog, and on Fridays he does a fiction blog. So get over there and check out some of his stories. They're fantastic. I read some of them today. He is still doing his artwork. He does commissions. He does pet portraits. He'll draw your house. He's doing stuff for a real estate company still right now. He's doing pet portraits, which are fantastic. He did a couple for me and some people that are near and dear to my heart. And he's just still doing great stuff. He's a great dude. So get out there and support Caleb Quire. CalebQuire.com. Follow him on Instagram at CQWorks. And thank you, Caleb Quire. I think that's all I got, guys. I got all emotional there at the end. God damn it. Why do I do that? It's only 9:11 at night. It's an early one for me, but I wanted to. I just had it. I had this in my mind. I wanted to do it. It's the 50th episode. I want to thank everybody one more time. This show would be nothing without every single one of you. So keep listening. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon, guys. Talk to you soon.